All right. We have Ron from, it's easy for the shirt to say, Steelport Knife Company. Really excited to hear about your story. You have a very interesting background. You'll be our first PhD on the on the podcast. But I always like to hear originally just where do you come from? How'd you grow up? And what I like to understand is why be an entrepreneur and what was so interesting about that. And then of course we'll segue into kind of the story. But yeah, why don't we kick it off with just tell me a little bit about how you grew up and a little bit about yourself and go from there.
Perfect. Thank you, Steve, for this opportunity. It's kind of funny. Myself, like other entrepreneurs, when starting first startup or as we go through, there's, as a part of entrepreneurship, I think one of our characteristics is we always ask why and how and what. We're always in learning. I think that's one of the characteristics that's common. So this is a kind of exciting, relaxing opportunity to talk about, where is this all started, where it can go, and just hopefully share some of the ideas and learnings that I've had in this time that we are together. So a little background myself. I was born in Iran and moved out of country when I was 15. Basically, was driven by the fact that if I had stayed any longer, I couldn't leave. At 16, you have to stay for uh, military service, and I figured it's time to go out and explore different countries. So travel around the world. I did my high school in 4 countries, and
Oh
then
wow.
finished up high school in Corvallis, Oregon, and then did my BS, MS, and PhD from the same city. I think I have the only one that actually has gotten 4 consecutive degrees. Same a small town in Oregon, which is not something to be proud of, but something that I'm associated with it. It was just like anything else that I've learned in life. Sometimes you just have to have a general plan of where you want to go, and then let the uh, stream take you there. Yes. And the same thing, didn't find my high school. I'd done 4 countries, so I didn't have an interest in
Can we
changing.
Can we
Please.
talk about so what countries? And listen, we talked a little bit beforehand. My wife's Persian, and it's very stereotypical to like you got to get the education, right? And always extremely hardworking culture. Very, I mean, always extremely educated. But like, did you have any siblings? And talk about these four different countries and what did you were there any takeaways? I know you were young, but you were still high school, so what did that sort of teach you in preparation for going to college?
So basically, during that teenage years, obviously I did Iran, started my high school, and then Germany. I was in Frankfurt area for sure. That was the closest one to live, and then did it in Canada, and then my 12th grade was in Corvallis, Oregon. So that's kind of the 4 locations I get a chance to spend time in high school. And to answer your question, is I think living with uncertainty.
Hmm.
As a teenage, you're too young to appreciate what troubles you can get to. Again, tying back into entrepreneurship, I think that's a great value. I talk to a lot of my colleagues and friends, entrepreneurs, that say, if I knew what I know now, I'm not sure exactly how I would start this, because none of the startups that I've been involved with, or other people I've been involved with, exactly follows what you're hoping and wishing to happen. A little bit of a naivety helps a lot to jump into the waters that you might not otherwise do that. You have to be balanced, make sure you don't kill yourself. And I think as a teenager, I was, like leaving the country at 15. Why not? It's like that was my first airplane flight I've ever got onto. Was getting on the plane to leave the country and become an adult. What could go possibly go wrong? But like I remember, like in Vancouver, British Columbia, I was um, I was alone, teenager. What do you do? So I started like with a couple of friends in middle of night, midnight, went to downtown Vancouver. Like any other big cities, you see the standard drugs and other activities happening downtown. I sat there and watched people kind of smiling and pretending they're having fun. And as soon as a car would pass by and they were alone, you could see them freezing and really being miserable
Uh,
uh, afterwards. And I'm looking at it as a teenager, I'm looking at it going, this doesn't sound like too much of a smart thing to do. So I just enrolled myself in yet another class at evening, so I have my evenings busy because there was no pressure. There was nobody to rebel against uh, type thing. So actually, that's kind of the learning was, things happen. And the other learning that I carry to my life, I hope I never proven wrong, is throughout that experience, and since then, I probably have met thousands of people, and I never have come across the single person in that during that vulnerable period or even now that intentionally wanted to harm me.
uh,
It's kind of a strange. I have had come across like anybody else people that uh, uh, try to harm you, but there is typically a reason behind it. Either they misunderstood something you did, or they see you on their way to get. But their objective is not simply to hurt you, unless if
right.
they're mentally ill.
Yeah.
And it's like just has given me a big respect and confidence in human beings' core value sets, and good is something I really believe something very, very core to every human being. Now, experiences and other stuff kind of clouds that, and people react for self-interest. They see other stuff, so we have a tendency of stepping on each other. But the core, I think, if cleaning it up, you can achieve really good progress getting back into that everybody's good, and that has been uh, very good lesson for me throughout my career and life.
Did you have do you have siblings? And did you grow up in I think I'd like to understand it. So your family move or not, or was it just you?
Just me. I had one brother that was in the United States living, and he finished up studying and starting to work in the United States when I was there. But at the time, it was right after all the fun stuff with the it was all the hostage and things like that. After that, Iraq War, so U.S. wasn't allowing new students or people like that to come to the U.S. So that's how I end up in
Going to different, right.
different countries and things like that. And then when I got to Canada, I kind of ran out of funding from mom and dad and things like that. So I had to find the place, and at the time, got a visa to come to the U.S. and spend some
So
time with my brother.
what what was the intention? You obviously went to school for quite a while. What did you going in think you wanted to do, or did you? Or you were just interested in like, I mean, listen, engineering is a certain, I would say, type of brain. And I guess was it what drove you to study that and then continue studies all the way to do
Yeah.
your PhD? Like what
Unfortunately, I don't have a great story for that. I'm a product of an Eastern culture, and as you mentioned, your wife is Iranian. As you mentioned, becoming a doctor is considered very high respect. So, since my high school, I was always had to become a medical doctor. Actually, there was no question
Mhm.
that I would become a physician, surgeon, or something like that. So that was true all the way into the first term of college when I went to Oregon State University. First term, I enrolled at pre-med. Then I went to an orientation uh, class that would teach. They were talking about, whether to take pre-med and things like that. And they had a whole bunch of statistics, like 35% of the graduates from pre-med end up going to medical school. 90% of the graduates of the philosophy degree end up getting accepted. Who will have 90% of people who have applied with a philosophy degree, undergraduate degree, got accepted to medical school. Electrical engineering and engineering in general was somewhere between 60% or something like that. And in my again, still I was a teenager, I guess back then. I was thinking about this. That statistically doesn't make sense. Why would I go for 4 years of pre med
Right.
and get a degree that I might have a 35% chance of getting to medical school?
You're already
Uh,
optimizing.
yeah, like exactly. That's a mindset. That's like, why would I do that? And then get with a degree that I couldn't do anything. What can you do with a pre med degree? So I switched over to electrical engineering because I did a calculation and I could finish up EE in 2.5 years. So I've just finished up in 2.5 years, applied to medical school, and then I'm ahead in multiple angles and it's like that, save money and everything else. And then the book wrote itself. Did it in 2.5 years ago. This was relatively fun and easy, but just before I applied, I just get a master's degree, and I did my master's in 9 months.
Oh my gosh.
And I go, okay, maybe I'm an electrical engineer. And then I started working and did my PhD while I was doing my first job in a startup. Uh,
What were you
and then
doing?
I got
What was the startup?
it was a company called Planar Systems, which is still around. The headquartered in Beaverton, Oregon. At the time, I was employee 30 something ever hired for the company. And they made and make flat panel displays. And my PhD thesis was on uh, uh, visual reality and AR for glasses and uh, areas like that. And that's what the technology they were using. So I was able to do my PhD and my work at the same time, and they were great companies supported me, and I just got a chance to experience going through that company. That was my first startup experience. I was on the passenger seat watching the company go IPO. That was
Oh,
my first and only experience with IPO, and seeing watching that progress going through that. I was involved in acquisition. We acquired a company in Finland, so I spent 3 years
mhm.
learning Finnish and traveling to
Oh
Finland,
my gosh. That's one of the
learning
hardest
new stuff.
languages there are.
Yeah, yeah, and you think my accent is bad now. You should have seen me. You should have heard me back then. I had a Finnish accent combined with English, combined with Farsi, and nobody can understand what the heck I say, including my mom. So,
It's like there's a couple things, you know, I'm guessing it was software, hardware. So there was a component to both, right?
it was purely hardware at the time.
So there,
It was
okay, you guys weren't doing the software.
we were not. I wasn't involved with the software. The company had software group separate from me, but I was in the research group, hardcore, worrying about band gaps and zinc sulfide, doped with manganese and how much, what percentage, and what is the heat treatment required for that. It was very depths of R&D. That's how
Hardware is
that's
so it's so hard.
that
Sorry to
was
cut you.
some.
It's such a hard business to make work, especially when you don't know what it's and it's not a commodity, right? So did how long were you there? You said what, 3 years?
7 years.
7 years. Okay. And
Uh,
what I mean, you see this massive growth, or at least it goes in IPOs, like must have been a wild ride. What did you take from there to what did you do next?
So what happened was that again, it was a very supportive company. My manager, the manager that hired me, he passed away a few years ago, but amazing mentor. Basically, was retired from Tektronix and joined this company as kind of a engineering lead and took me under his wing. And he was such a uh, no ego at all that he was actually ended up to be my first employee. So, so he reported to me after I reported to him. It was that level, that type of mindset that didn't really care about titles and moving forward. So that was a company culture. And then after the acquisition and things like that, when I was fully back in the US, there was a skunk project came out that basically was the virtual reality I mentioned, eyeglasses, and I got involved with the company with other companies, and we were able to get about $18 million of funding from DARPA. Honeywell was involved, Boeing was
Wow.
involved, Army ARL involved, and we got that funding, and I was able to put together a plan for a manufacturing line that makes about 100,000 units of these displays, which was basically 386 computer on your belt and just tells you the years it is, and AR on your glasses. Always find it funny that if you're still working on AR and virtual reality. Uh, so that was the project, and we got the funding, and the CEO of the company came to me and said, "Hey, Ron, you have started this, you have created this thing. Uh, we are starting a division. We want you to be general manager for that division."
Very cool.
And as a 20 something, my career target, my 10, 15-year plan was to become a general manager.
Uh,
So that collapsed on at 20 something. I was offered that. I remember going home really excited on that Friday. And then I reflected on the over the weekend saying, what do I do? I'm a PhD guy with a experience as a research scientist in a small company. how do you do 100,000 of anything? How do you even get supplies for 100,000? My only place I knew at the time was Radio Shack, which had only 6 or 7 parts, not
Mhm.
100,000. And how do you hire operation people? I had this picture in my mind that I would get a truck and go and pick up people on the street to come and work on operation, Home Depot or something like that. Just no concept whatsoever of what is high volume manufacturing. So after that reflection, went back to the company and worked with them to hire somebody to replace me and to go out in the wild and learn about what does the manufacturing mean. So that was the kind of driver out there. So I went and joined the company, biggest manufacturer in the world at the time that I knew of, which was Hewlett Packard. Between the inkjet and computers at the time, they were the biggest consumer electronics manufacturer in the world that I'm not sure if it's statistically valid, but at the time, that was the numbers I had. So joined them, and about the next 13 years, I worked for HP doing rotations through different functions.
Interesting.
So I started as manufacturing. I learned about how do you manufacture chipsets and things like that, 100,000 per month. Bring up a new manufacturing line in Singapore, working with Charter Semiconductor in Singapore. Then switch over after manufacturing, switch over procurement. What does the supply chain in Guadalajara looks like? How do you deal with Japanese versus Korean negotiations and the table? What is the customs? What is the pricing and things like that? I was in charge of acquiring electronics procurement at a group of procurement organization for 10 or 20 billion dollars of
Can,
printers at
can we pause
HP.
right? Hold on one second. Hold on one second. So the GM that you became a startup for, did that
I never
or
became the GM. I got the offer.
you got the
That
offer?
was a that was an impetus to me and saying, okay, it's
I
like the analogy I think about is like driving 65 miles per hour and hitting solid wall. That was
I
my solid wall. That was I just don't know how would my first day even look like.
I got it.
So
Okay. I
so I
wanted
went
to
to the management and basically said, I know this is not for me. And they were after 2 weeks of dining and whining, they said, okay, we get you. We know you're serious, and it's like go off and explore. Come back in a couple of years.
right.
It
Right,
took me
right.
13 years, and the company moved on.
What does Hewlett Packard, it sounds, I didn't know this, but it sounds like it had very similar to GE, a rotational program. Because I think GE was the one who kind of, don't quote me on that, but from
Yeah,
my understanding of people who have been inside GE for
yeah,
15, 20, 25 years, that's
yeah,
how they really, if they saw someone's upside or slope,
yeah.
they would do this exact rotational program so that you could get, and then ultimately put you ahead of a division, right? Because they're a conglomerate. Is
Yeah.
that similar?
It's similar but different in the sense that I created the rotation. There was no rotation program
Oh wow.
in the thing. So I
Okay.
joined the group for 2 years. And HP, again, at the time, I've left it 16 years ago, so I don't know exactly what is it now. At the time, it was a very established groups that really cared about the individual people. So when I would join a group, like I would join the procurement or manufacturing group, I entered as a manager, so that which was very unusual at the time, and left as an executive for HP. But everybody below me had many years of experience, 10, 20 years of experience. Everybody next to me in that role had 10, 20 years of experience. My
Right.
manager in that role had been 10 or 20 years experience. So as a newcomer, when I would come in, quickly I would learn everybody was stepping in,
Mm,
trying to help me. And within 12 months to 18 months, I mean, you learned decades of experience just
gotcha.
right there on the job training. And then after 2 years, when I was contributing, I would find another opportunity, another location.
Got
And
it.
HP was very supportive because they wanted to keep you in the fold. And it
Sure.
was mostly progressive, kind of moving up the ladder. So there was no objection from my manager. There was no challenge with that and things like that. So I just went through rotations through manufacturing, procurement, R&D, uh, quality. I'm a Six Sigma black belt trained, and I manage sales engineering and
It's wow.
executive with multiple. You
How many
know,
employees at the time? I mean, this is during the heyday,
yeah,
right? So how many employees did, I mean, they were one of the biggest companies in the world.
yeah. It was a $180 billion company,
Yeah.
probably back then when I was it was probably I don't I would be guessing, but it would be had to be at least 200,000
Yeah.
employees,
Wow.
$180 billion.
Okay. Now I know you went from there to another big company, which is Logitech, right? Is that
Yeah, so that was the main 13 years going through it, and I landed in San Diego, where I was an executive at a group of about 110, 120 technical staff around the world. In San Diego, primarily, I had about 50 engineers and 56 engineers in San Diego, some engineers in Singapore, and we had a all sales engineering, application engineering, R&D, hardware, software, all different aspects, basically outsourcing our printheads
Mhm.
to third-party private label, basically.
Got it.
And then it was time to kind of come back to Northwest. My mom was living locally,
Mhm.
and I had this temptation of going back to academia type thing. So I came up here, did some interviews with a local university, Washington State University. They were looking for head of electrical engineering department. I go, hey, time for me to have a PhD. Might as well use that PhD and go to academia. And so I came back here and got a kind of a verbal job offer. So I was coming in to finalize my package in academia. They give you a package for starting your research as you join in the
Mhm.
thing. So I was just like, okay, how much is this and things like that. I stopped by a company, Logitech, locally, and talked to the VP of engineering there as a bit of intent of making local connection. As an academic, you need to have a local. Even before I accept the offer to go to university. And then between like we got into a good conversation. He had some questions about how do you contract manufacturing, how do you outsource some of the production you have at the time. Logitech had acquired a local company here, and they had some problems with quality and trying to get the products out, missing dates, deadlines, and things like that. So we spent 2 hours on the black whiteboard. I kind of drew up some of the concepts and how things needs to come in place, and what's the difference between CDM and EDM, and different contract manufacturing concepts, and where the software comes in, how does that integrate into hardware, and left without thinking about it. Then I got an email and a phone call within 48 hours asking me not to accept the the offer to university, wait for them, give them 2 more days to turn around the offer. They made an offer I couldn't refuse. So that was my. Then I end up,
You're just
uh,
and
and I think that's asking kind of lessons and things like that. This in my career has been definitely have a plan and direction, but don't get too attached to it. If
Mhm.
fortune knocks, be able to open that door, even though it might not have been the primary door you were thinking about it. And that was an amazing experience. They were a great company. Then we got back up here and things like that. And then in a couple of years, they offered me a VP of position down in the headquarters, which is in Bay Area. And I just had come back from from California. I wasn't about to go back. And then it was 2000. That was like 15 years of self training, and I just woke up and go, wow, why did I start this whole process? I started this whole process because I was a startup and I wanted to get back into the
Yeah.
startup, and I was trying to learn. Did I learn anything? That was a question that was burning in my mind.
Mm.
So that year I switched over and started applying for some smaller companies, startup, joined as a general manager to a small company that made uh, uh, creative effect lenses for SLR cameras. Did that general manager and grew the organization from about $4.5 million revenue to under $10 million revenue, uh, from having borrowed money to over $1 million in the bank, cash in the bank. I go, okay, I
I
think
think
maybe I've learned something.
yes,
And
yes.
then since then, I've been involved, including that, I've been involved with 11 startups and small companies that, as a founding member or as a VP of engineering or some sort of is a bug that has bit me. And it sounds like Steve, you're following the same. multiple companies and entrepreneurship.
Yeah, I always, I mean, I don't think I'm ever, never say never, because I have been at but we were kind of, when we got acquired, my last startup, we were just operating on our own as a part of that public company, and it's a small public company. But the point is that I love startups because I love the 0 to 1 in the building, right? And but I always ask myself, I'm like, gosh, I've never been at a company like HP or a company that's went IPO. Uh, it- it's operating at such a scale, right? So I have a lot of curiosity around it. How do you maintain the startup culture in a large organization to try to eliminate the bureaucracy that eventually starts to grow. But when you see a high performing company, and then you become an entrepreneur, I'm sure you've taken a lot of those uh, learnings, especially like you said, that time that you spent at HP, one of the biggest companies at the time. But the fact that, you know, below, beside, and above, people who had been part of this company, brilliant 10, 20 years of experience, you compress that into such a small period of time. That experience is something that, yeah, it's intangible, right?
Yeah.
So I guess when you've done now, I think you said 11 startups since that first go. Um, what has been the most memorable one before Steelport? And, you know, I want to get into how we got to Steelport, but maybe you could give one of those that really, maybe there was just something that you took away that was just invaluable, that especially for the audience, like that you learned. um could be a failure, or it could be a positive story, but I'm just curious,
Okay.
what was it? Yeah.
I think the audience and yourself are experiencing every single one of those experiences. There's a learning associated with it, and if you have lived it, you have learned from it,
Mhm.
type thing. And I can choose any of them, but probably just kind of balancing success versus failure. Problem with failure is I have a
You
hard time
learned.
using names. But one of the learning was that one of the early companies I got involved a year or two after leaving Logitech was a company in a success story, was a company called Clarisonic. They sold to actually I joined them as a VP of engineering. I was one of the founders. We were just growing fast, and they didn't have an engineering organization, so they asked me to join in as a to help just create an R&D organization. And this was my early startup understanding, and they said, hey, you're getting ready to sell and things like that. It's very hard for us to give you shares. Do you want a good salary, or do we have to force shares? And I'm like, just give me a good salary. Sure, shares you guys can keep yourselves. So that was in a kind of a beauty devices world, kind of in the line between just below medical devices. Our job was so created, and the experience there was watching a large company. It was $100 million revenue and being sold for, I think I can share that now because it's been past the 4 years limitation. Sold about $500 million at the time, type thing. So that was kind of a learning of how does that transition work. But the company I wanted to highlight was that experience got me into medical devices. And there was another company that I was a founding member, but I wasn't the founder type thing. I was acting as a CEO and COO, and president and CEO role was the kind of the founder type thing. And we had very good, respectful team and things like that. But because everybody else in the company was coming only from large companies that experienced the great big companies, they walked in with the assumption that you can start big, go to places like QVC, go to spend a
Uh-huh.
lot of money. And we had, and spend a lot of money to make a very high quality, nice packaging and things like that. And even though I was in HP for and large company for 15 years, my original training was small company. So by definition, I'm very frugal type thing. Less, seat off your pants is very important for me in
Yeah.
startups. Not in the purely software world nowadays, that necessarily doesn't work. But I'm still very much a believer that that's the way to grow small companies as much as you can. And that was kind of got a clash with the rest of the organization. Long story short, that company had amazing technology, one of the best patent portfolio and things like that. Great founder. I'm still good friends with the founder and relationship with the members and things like that. But it went bankrupt. The company went bankrupt. It just grew and it grew ahead of itself and it started collecting more and more debts and more external investments in something that hadn't been proven to the marketplace. And when you start borrowing money and when investments come in, external investment come in the big bulk of 5 million, 10 million, you're getting into this circle and cycle that now you're not working for customers and your products anymore. You're trying to get this promise of 10x
Yeah.
delivered. Nobody is going to invest in your company because they wanted to get the 5% a year or they wanted to wait 20 years before they see their money. They
Right.
could have invested in the bank and get a CD for
Sure.
that.
Sure.
They want a high risk, high return. If you fail, move off the road. And that has a constant tension to that. So long story is kind of learning for that was that coming back, I needed to be stronger in my beliefs and saying, okay, let's incrementally grow. Let's invest in places that we have data. Let's make sure we test before we throw in a whole bunch of money
Right.
behind it, type thing. So that's
So let's kind of switch gears and kind of go towards Steelport, but you have been, at least for what you spoke about, is largely a lot of companies with high technical knowledge that is required to produce the product,
yeah.
right? And so you have some experience. I don't know if cooking is one of the is a passion, but like who's trying to innovate in this space and why? Like, because I believe you had this is it Finex, the cast iron?
Finex, yeah, that's right.
Finex,
That's right.
Finex, sorry about that. What
Okay.
what drove you to a space that doesn't and maybe please push back on the technical part, but it's like you were tinkering always with, I mean, especially being an electrical engineer, right? It's just like the hardest stuff that hardware software usually is required to build the end state product. And now we're going to go towards something that's not typical.
Yes.
Why? Like, why did you do that?
It's a very good question. It comes back into heart and brain, maybe conflict type thing. But if you remember the history, the 15 years or before that, 7 years, it was a lot of high tech, and especially in the last decade, I was in the technology in the larger companies. I was spending a lot of my time outsourcing jobs overseas. If you look back, we were outsourcing hundreds, thousand jobs to Taiwan, China, Singapore, Malaysia, place like that, and trying to do technology transfer to them to teach them and reduce staffing here.
Uh-huh.
Maybe it's immigrant in me, but I really was passionate about bringing jobs back to the US. And that was kind of like a conflict always in my mind. So since then, even the high tech companies, all of the manufacturings were done, Clarisonic, that other medical device company, the AI company I was executive on and things like that, manufacturing were done in the US
Gotcha.
type thing.
Interesting.
So, and then the other, so that was I wanted to bring manufacturing back to the US. The other factor is if you look back at your teenage years, if you remember those times, there's a lot of connection in the family that I was missing because I had to leave. And food as a human history and human nature has a different meaning to it. Breaking the bread is a meaningful uh, expression in English. Food was kind of flow. So my connection to my culture, my connection to my family was around food and cooking and things like that. So I was always into cooking. And then in 2012 came up with this opportunity that my co-founder came up with this idea, a sketch of a new cast iron
Mm,
skillet. And I looked at that and go, the cast irons haven't been reinvented for 1,000 years. Maybe
right.
there's a reason, maybe there's not a reason for it, things like that. But but the driver for it was to become the first, the at the time, the only premium American-made cast iron skillet. And I didn't have a hope of getting 1,000 employees for that company within a reasonable time. But if I fast forward to now, there is at least 8 other companies that now make premium American-made cast
Mm,
iron. So there was a big gap. Actually, for first 3 years that we had that company, our tagline was, "We are 100% less French than Le Creuset." Because everybody would come to us and say, "What is Le Creuset makes cast iron too? What's the difference between you guys and them?" So we're 100% less French. But that kind of drove the manufacturing back. And now with 8 other companies, there is a whole industry that created, and I don't know exact numbers, but I venture to say there's about 1,000 people employed collectively in that
sure.
market. So that was kind of the incentive in getting to that food because of that personal connection, that being able to manufacture locally and bring in something old and new. And then being able to make an heirloom product is pretty powerful, especially if you're in a high tech company. Rarely we make heirloom product. Our products are designed to be obsolete within 3 or 5 years, if you're lucky to that long. Something that you can make that passes on generation to generation up to today. I have people coming to our Steelport factory talking to me about fine eggs and show me the pictures of the fine eggs, the full selection, the full patina that is colored and shaped, and some that are passing on to their kids. Even in a short time, we have, short time, which is 14 years, is starting to create its own legacy type thing. That's very powerful. And then when I was at HP, we had customers from Best Buy to other people that you would visit and type thing. And I used to joke with my wife that none of those are wonderful people and everything was great, but I didn't have any desire to give any of them a hug. In this new job, every retailer I go into and things like that, I get a hug. There's a personal contact, food sampling. There's the emotional contact that goes beyond the financial return. So the food brings different aspects. I just had last week, one of our customers that is a Steelport customer just come in and brought in the hamburger that he personally had made with a special sauce that he had personally made to bring it over, and he wanted me and my wife to just give it as a gift for us to sample and try. So that's, I don't remember ever that happening at HP or Logitech. They have a new processor. I will just drop it off for you, sample.
Sure. Well, so Finex, you started and obviously the reason being, passion for food, which and just bringing back manufacturing more to the U.S. And what was the impetus for Steelport? Like,
So very similar thing. In 2019, I sold Finex to a company called Lodge, which is a large manufacturer in the U.S. of cast iron skillet, and with the caveat to keep the headquarters in Portland and keep staff employed, which they had done a great job for our 4 years of agreement.
can we pause there? Walk me through a little bit about how that happened. Like, if you're
So
willing to
yeah,
share.
absolutely, absolutely. After a few years, we were growing pretty well at uh, Finex, and at a certain point, we came to a crossroad that a lot of companies do. Is that we're growing faster than we can maintain from infrastructure, from finances, and things like that. At
The
the
hike.
time, yeah, exactly, capital requirements for that, and also I've gone, I've been manager involved with companies larger than Finex at the time, so I knew what to expect coming up. We had
Mm,
to start putting structures of department, marketing department, HR, and all the functionality. And up to that point, a lot of the stuff we did at Finex were unique to Finex. So we're adding something new to the marketplace. Moving forward, a significant majority of our investments would be spent creating infrastructure that already exists out there, the
mhm.
sales team that can go international, HR department, a finance department. Those are not, we're not going at finance, we're not going to create new ways of doing HR and
Right.
hopefully not new ways of doing finance. Hopefully, get in trouble. Uh, so the question was that do we invest and follow up that direction, or do we go and start getting somebody that already does that and is interested in our brand and can bring in all of their infrastructure and basically leverage that in the
Uh-huh.
marketplace.
Mhm.
So I talked to the team, and collective desire was let's go ahead and we have reached our limit of our kind of what we want to be investing into from an emotional investment perspective. Let's bring somebody that has the infrastructure and things like that, and also provides career path for some of the team members that wanted to
That makes
stay
sense.
stay there. And you know, three of my core managers, four of my core managers stayed after we sell, and two of them are still with the company after so many years,
That's awesome.
2019. So that was kind of that. And the genesis of Steelport, coming back to your question, was in 2019. I had the same experience. I went to places, any national retail store, kitchen retail store, Williams Sonoma, Crate and Barrel, Sula Tab, you name it, any of those places. If you go to those stores, 100% of the knives are made in Japan, Germany, or low-end China. There is not a single knife, good, bad, ugly, pretty, that are made in the US. And if you know my background, that's like call for a fight. You know, I was all passionate about cookware and cast iron. At the time, at least there was a low-end American cast iron, which was brand large. We were just missing the premium brand.
Sure.
In this case, you go to the stores, there's nothing in that column. If you're a 2x2 uh, academic thinker like I am, is like the whole side is empty. Like
Sure.
this doesn't make any sense, especially for people who are into knife. No, like Portland is a knife town, USA. In Portland, Oregon, we make majority of the knives sold in the US. American-made knives sold in the US are made in Portland, except all of them are outdoor knives or multi-purpose knives. Brands like Letterman, Kershaw, Benchmade, Gerber, CRKT, they're all Portland-based companies.
Oh, wow.
So it's really mind-boggling for me that we have all these companies that make, you know, everyday carry and outdoor knives and tactical knives and things like that. We actually dominate. Not only U.S. dominates that market, Portland dominates that market.
Right.
And in this other business, the knife, kitchen knives, and cutlery, we are just completely giving up that fight
Right.
completely. Like uh, there's a gap here, and I love gaps. So like drove in there. The problem we found, the problem I knew given the Finex is that we couldn't just make an average knife. If you make an average product in the market that's not expecting and wanting that product, you're failing. We had to make our knife so much better that people go, wow, that's amazing. It's made in US, made in Portland. I have to give it a shot because it's such an amazing knife.
Right.
We had to get our knives to that point. That's why I partnered with my business partner who has 25 years of experience making knives, sharpening knives. His name is Eitan Zayas. And he actually started as a busboy before he became a chef. So he had calluses from hours of chopping onions and garlic.
Oh,
And then
God.
we brought in 12 experts that, you know, my friends, engineers, and other people
Uh-huh.
that we have experience to make the best knife family of knife products we could possibly make, leveraging all that infrastructure that was already existing in Portland because of local knife manufacturing. So that was Steelport's genesis.
I gotta tell you though, Ron, it's the way that you speak about it, here's any entrepreneur. It doesn't matter what you're doing. In this case, it's the passion behind just knives. Most people would be like, "Oh, does it cut? Does it,
Yeah.
does it functionally work for me?" But it's it's amazing to hear, and you can tell the passion around just like the product and the industry. Like we want to make sure that these are the best knives that you can buy, and um, also American made, which is awesome. So talk to me a little bit about what do you specialize in? on the knife of the knives, and I noticed I think you're also providing like cutting boards too, and so you kind of vertical you're starting to verticalize a little more with, hey, buy the knife. Also, here's an incredible cutting boards. Um, yeah, tell me a little bit about that.
So we make again, your audience, most of our audience is podcast, so they cannot see the pictures. But every knife, every product you make is has to pass three requirements.
Well, this will be on
And
YouTube. Don't worry about that.
oh,
So
perfect. All
you can
right.
bring
So
it
again,
on.
it's yeah. So we can put props here for people on the YouTube type thing. Every product we make has to pass three requirements. And disclaimer:
Okay.
this is the same three requirements I had in Finex. My old sales guy in Finex accuses me of lack of creativity. Uh, but I found that if you have a simple boundary conditions, it allows you to do actually a lot more innovative in that boundary condition.
Okay.
And three requirements that we have is first everything you make has to be pretty. If it's not beautiful, people don't buy as a gift and things like that. This is for consumer goods, everyday use, knives, cast iron
Uh-huh.
skillets, other headsets, anything people can see. So I leave the audience to figure out if we made a good job on beauty or not.
I
But
think
because
so.
it's heirloom, it has to be timeless beauty. So you look at the handle is a natural wood. That natural wood has been beautiful 100 years ago. I expect it to be 100 years later. Stuff like Damascus blades and
What is the handle
granite
made out of? What is it made out of?
is Oregon big leaf maple. It's a
Okay.
barrel type thing, so a piece of Pacific Northwest in there, and then the blade, is carbon steel. Beauty for sake of beauty is not our goal. I really abhor hood ornaments. Everything has to be functional. So it has to be beautiful, but every feature has to have a function. So if you look at this, the steel is the hardest steel industry. We are at 65 Rockwell hardness. That's three levels higher than any other knife steels out there, including Japanese. At the same time, it's very hard. It doesn't chip very easily. But you see the difference color
Oh,
is
I
not
was
just
I didn't
simply
know if it was the
simply is not simply for prettiness. Is we do a coffee patina. We actually dip the knives into coffee. And if you remember, my background is cast iron skillet. Nobody buys unseasoned cast iron skillet. Everything's seasoned.
hmm
Nobody seasons their knife before selling it. We decided to add a coffee because why not? Provide a protective layer. But the nice thing of coffee is it stains soft and hard steel differently. So you can see the edge where you need everything to be hard is lighter. Coffee absorbs to the hard steel less, so it becomes kind of lighter. But we keep the spine and the handle softer because this is meant to be heirloom. It's meant to be 40, 50, 60 years. We're going to drop on the ground and things like that. You want to give it a little bit of a give here. So difference in the color, you can visually look at it and say, this is softer than this. And this is not only for prettiness, but it's also a guarantee to you as a customer that this was heat treated correctly. This is a visual quality check. The color will tell you, yep, if you hadn't done it well, they would be all black, all white, or would be spots of black and white everywhere. So that color in there. But knife is about usage. It has to be comfortable. I mentioned to you my business partner and chef and busboy with the calluses on his hand. So it was everything had to be really comfortable fitting your hand. So if you look at it,
Oh
the
wow.
knife is well
Balance.
balanced. So I'm holding it where I normally pinch hold the knife type thing is balanced. So it's just the weight disappears in your hand. If you look at it, there's a curved bolster and there's a finger hole. Kind of encourages you to hold finger in a pinch hold that's recommended for a chef. And then if you look at the handle, we are the only company in the world that has one piece handle wrapped around the
Oh wow. So it's
full
not.
tang with the end
Yeah.
tang. Yeah, it's not two pieces. It's not rat tail, small piece going in there. This whole thing. This is the two of the best construct. One
Right.
piece handle this contract and kind of coming together. We have this tagline that says craftsmanship without compromise. It gets us much of a trouble. And then if you look at everywhere you touch is actually softened, we rounded it. So when you hold it, it's comfortable. And that contoured handle fits your hand, regardless of your hand size. If you have a large hand, it comes back here. If a small hand, chokes up to it. So it's comfortable when you use it. Again, we want to make the cooking, meal preparation a joy, not a chore. And this is supposed to kind of encourage you to grab a knife, make that dinner salad, make that dinner plate, and things like that.
I'm already sold, by the way, Ron.
And the third requirement we have is everything has to be U.S. source. All the components, steel, U.S. Wood, and things like
Okay.
that, and everything made locally, so we have quality in there. So yeah, those are three requirements that we keep applying. So we have like an 8-inch chef knife, which was original knife. We go all the way down to boning knives and a small 4-inch paring knife, and then all the way to 10-inch knife that has edge to allow you to cut on the cutting board without hitting your knuckles. So it's small stuff. Looking at that, and then my favorite by far is the bread knife. I won't take necessarily the time here, but we spent a couple of years trying to figure out how to get the serration, how do we make a great bread knife, because nobody else was paying attention to serrated knife and bread knife. So that's the whole story. But everything we do, we are not trying to be the cheapest product. We already agree that we are not going to be cheapest product. So we have gone the other way. So we're going to be something that you buy and never have to jealous of anybody else's knife in the kitchen, and you can leave this. That's why we have a lifetime warranty and lifetime free sharpening, because we really want this to be your heirloom product
Yeah.
you pass on to next generation.
The way that you're describing is very Steve Jobs asks, just the craftsmanship, the quality that hopefully you never have to buy one again. How much does that set cost if you can buy that full set?
So the knives range from 250 for a paring knife all the way to 450 for the
Oh,
bread
that's
knife.
back in the day, right? They had this door-to-door Cutco knife salesman and now where is mostly do you go to retail stores like I saw like Crate and Barrel kind of announcement, or is it an e-commerce play? I could just see this blowing up on, TikTok or Instagram, just having, the social selling of it. But can you tell me where's sales today and walk me through a little bit about your distribution?
We are distributed. We are close to, I don't know, close to 100 locations in the U.S., and we are online and things like that. But by far, our number one selling channel that is word of mouth. So it ends up coming back to be with stuff. And I think that, I mean, I don't have a statistics to support that, but my feeling is customer attention saturation. If you open up any uh, knife accounts, or if you're on the ads and things like that, everybody claims to have the best knife, greatest knives, and everything else. I was in Costco, and there was a Chinese brand there that was selling 14 knives for $120, which is not surprising. I mean, you can go to
Right.
Target and buy a full
Yeah.
knife set for $60. The thing that surprised me is I grabbed the box and looked at it. It said handcrafted forged knife. I'm like, there's no way in the world this is handcrafted or forged, single drop forged and things like that. But there's no legal requirement. I mean,
Right.
handcrafted could mean I just grabbed it and put it in the box with a hand. That, if you define that, or forged means stuff. And actually, a couple of companies got in trouble for doing some other stuff that was legally required, like made in USA is legally required. So even people start trying to pretend they're made in USA when they're not. But if you're a customer, I was putting myself in a place of a customer. It's like if Ron from Steelport says we have a great knife, it's forged, it's amazing knife, and things like that, they're hearing that from 100 different people, and they don't know Ron from Adam. So why listen? What we found out is it really takes somebody that knows us, uses us, has grabbed our product and used it, some personal connection to really come out, and the coming and buying the second, third, fourth knife. The saying we have is that regardless of what knife you start with, you will end up with a full knife set in your kitchen.
Sure. Sure.
It just take 2 years to get there, because you're going to talk about it so much that your spouse, your children, your parents, your brother-in-law will find an excuse to buy that for your birthday, for Christmas, things like that. So that's what we're seeing growing up. And the other venue we're finding very effective is corporate gifts. So
Yeah.
a lot of it used to be common, get a champagne bottle or give some standard stuff to your clientele, to your employees, to your board directors. Now a lot of companies want put meaning behind it, so they want something that has a story behind it, has a craft behind it, has a lifetime, has a your company. If your company wants to associate with quality and not overnight uh, promises, but long-term promises, you want to be attached. You want your gift to also carry that. So we're seeing that pick up, which is great for us because if a company gives that to their favorite employees or investors or something like that, those are not just random people off the street.
Right.
Those are our customers. So they get the one knife or they get two knives, and they become our customers. You're seeing that grow significantly as a primary venue. Having said that, all that, we're still on retail. Like in Chicago, we're in Apt store, the
Oh, sure.
yeah, up in that area and things like that, and doing great job, great display, and they're selling along a bunch of other great equipment and products and things like that they have. So we're seeing in different locations.
Well, I will make sure we buy at least one knife. I actually have an event coming up in just over a week. We're having a bunch of small business owners, industrial business owners, and I will give one as a gift. So I after this, I'll make sure to I'll tell me which one the best. I'm probably gonna go with something like a steak knife, but we'll buy one from you and we'll give it away. And so that'll be
That's a great example of getting visibility to different small companies and different the
yes.
community that we create helps each other. Yeah.
Well, and I'm gonna sell. It's American made, so that's great. What size is the facility, and then approximately what are our sales today, and where do you see this going?
We are in our factory. Our main factory is in Northeast Portland and what they call Sandy Boulevard and 36, which is the first exit of downtown Portland. We have about 12 people working on the team. Typing.
Nice.
We don't have any external investments. We are employee-owned company under ESOP. Typing, and that has been really effective. I know how many of your audience and yourself have experience with that, but it's really freeing when people themselves are investing their time rather than
Of course.
external money. It just seems like if you're able to do that, that's really powerful. You just get a double benefit from
Hmm.
it, typing. And we are still under 5 million revenue. The kind of a growth range of the the industry typing. And then you earlier asked, how are we expanding our product line? I want to finish up that answer to that
Sure.
question because knife is our primary focus. But what thing happened was that again, going back to my original typing, if opportunities knock, you have to open it up.
Hmm.
We quickly appreciate, and I think anybody that cooks in the kitchen appreciates that a great knife is necessary part of a wonderful meal preparation and cooking experience, but
Hmm.
it is not sufficient.
Yeah.
Uh, So, and then as soon as we introduced our first knife, the first request we got was a surface to cut it on. If you have a great knife, you need something to cut it on. It's kind of it comes back to those three requirements that we had. That sounds very simple, but it's very can make you have to innovate. But the same thing happened. We look at cutting boards. Obviously, we have been in cooking environments for a long time, so we knew our cutting boards. The best cutting boards in the world have been the edge grain and end grain cutting boards that has been for last 100 years have been through since industrial revolution. And those cutting boards have been great, but we are not in the business of putting our name on something that already exists, and we don't have anything to offer. We just let people go in there. So we had been spent 3 years trying to think about, is there something we can do to this part of the industry that matches the knife so closely that can add value? And the two biggest complaints we heard and we felt in the great wooden knife block, one was that it absorbs flavors and smell. If you cut a bunch of onions, the next time you cut an apple, your apple smells like onion, unless if you're not lazy. Unfortunately, I am to wash it with white vinegar and baking soda and just keep the smell out type thing. That was one issue. And the other issue was that good cutting boards have to be wooden cutting boards have to be 1.5 inch to 2 inches thick. If they're any thinner, the warp, the crack is a small pieces of wood that you attach to each other. So if too thin, it just falls apart. So that's kind of led us after 3 years to do this new cutting board. And it does solve those two problems. One is there's the only cutting board has patent bending that's actually two-sided. One side is recycled paper composite. So this side, is non-porous. So you do your garlic, onion, raw meat, raw fish on this side. You wipe it clean. You don't have to worry about anything getting absorbed. Flip it over, and the other side is your best surface in the world. In this case, is end grain walnut. A beautiful presentation. You can cut anything on it, type thing. That's one difference. The other difference, if you look at, is extremely thin. Is actually the wood is half an inch thick. The way we have been able to collapse it down is inside there's a network of steel. We actually have steel inside. We have years of experience attaching wood to steel because of our handles. So we know how to do this. And that way we have been collapsing. So what's keeping it flat and together is actually a steel network
Wow. That is
inside.
cool.
So that's, we were asking earlier, how do you get a patent pending into, high tech to low tech type thing. These are stuff that, if you're a cutting board maker, you're very good at wood. If you're a knife maker, you're very good at steel. We had to traverse those two coming together to come up with something that's
How
new
much
and
does
add
that
something in
cost?
there. So this one, different sizes range from 85 to 280.
Okay.
The larger one's 280. And then when we get into accessories like cutting boards, people have preferences. Like this is a end grain walnut, very classic, dark look, and kind of some people say it looks too good to cut on. I want to serve on it type thing. So we're just introducing tomorrow morning actually
Oh
our
wow. There.
newest cutting board, which is uh, maple. It just happened to be the same wood, the same tree as our handles, maple wood. And then we made it slightly lighter, so for people that want to get a little bit of lightness going in, and same characteristic of two-sided. This is the lighter color, lighter weight, and this is a little bit cheaper at 240 versus the largest one is at 240 type thing. But that's a good example of, we're talking about, how does opportunity open up, and where you take it to, when it knocks on the door, you just open it up.
Well, I think that might be a good place to kinda kinda stop. Uh, I really enjoyed just getting to know you and your story. Definitely get a couple sales, and then after this, yeah, I want to figure out, I don't know, I got basically next Wednesday is the dinner. So if we could get it somehow coordinated in the next 24 hours or something, I'd like to get a board and or a knife, and, I think it'd be a really nice gift for someone at the dinner. So, Baran, it's been incredible to hear your story, and I love what you're doing. The passion behind um, not just cooking, but just America, and also bringing manufacturing, employing. I love the ESOP too. Um, it's yeah, you're doing good in the world, which is great. And yeah,
Thank you, Steve, for your investment and kind of Rowan's investment into this time, because I know this is not free at the time investment, but it creates a community. I think people hearing each other's story, not every path is straight. It gives you confidence in success. And I'm also a university faculty member for last 16 years type thing. And I see that in especially the next generation of students, there's a lot of interest, significantly higher interest over the last few years in entrepreneurships
yeah,
and getting there for the younger generation that haven't had a chance to even work anywhere. They want to go straight from college to starting the company, and they rely on forums like this, podcasts and
yeah,
discussions. And the wonderful thing about this community of entrepreneurs and small company owners, what I found is that we are all open. I've not had anybody turn me down for a cup of coffee or a quick phone calls, because I think that is at the core. We are entrepreneurs. We have our own problem set to solve, but we also appreciate that we didn't get here by ourselves. We were
yeah.
getting help, and paying forward is a big one. And I think this podcast that you're making is within that ecosystem and strengthening that communication. So thank you.
Appreciate it. Appreciate it. Thank you, Ron.